Good afternoon, readers from the wilds of northern New Jersey, and West Milford is not burning today. Holy you know what, Batman. We've been living here for 41 years. I think 41. Yeah, we moved here in 1982. And we've had brush fires before, but we have never had a wildfire of this epic proportions is the only thing I can say. Almost 1,000 acres burned, and 3.5 days. Talking about scaring the you-know-what out of yourself. Yeah. And the whole time, all I could think of is, what would DJ do? What would my husband do if he was still alive? And I'm like, okay, I got this. I can be calm. And then I was so calm, I was starting to make myself nuts. So, but that's done. This morning, they announced that it is 100% contained, and as long as we have an inch of rain, which they were hoping for today, which doesn't look so good, it's just cloudy, or maybe tomorrow, then I don't know, then hopefully that'll work. I know I'm kind of live, but I don't want to take up too much time, so I wanted to set my clock on my phone so I could see what time it is. And it's big enough that I can read the screen. And look, it's my crazy grandsons. Did you like that little selfie that I asked them to take that I just posted? Yeah. They're so funny. But anyway, so we're not on fire. They stopped using the leaf blowers next door. They had like 3 or 4 of them. Okay, the yard is not that big next door. And they had 4 guys with leaf blowers blowing the leaves. I'm like, whatever happened to getting the rake out? But you can tell I'm an old bat because I think of things like this. So I was lucky enough to have 4 questions from people. And 4 people. So that was like big because last time I think I only had 2 questions. So I was thinking of answering questions first, and then we'll see about maybe I'll give you a little background. I'm not sure if I really gave, I gave a little bit of background the first day when I posted my bio and all that stuff. I have been writing for a while. I've always loved to write. Like school assignments when it was creative writing, I was like, I'm your woman. Don't ask me to do math. Not my thing. But you know, I can do fractions because you need them to cook and you need them to sew. So fractions I got. And, you know, basic math I got. But don't ask me to do differential equations or any of that stuff my husband did when he was studying to get his electrical engineering degree at NJIT. That was a while ago, too. Man, where'd the time go? When did I get so old? Anyway, back to my quick blurb about me. So, they had just put the roof on the front of the house. My husband and my brother were out there, and my father-in-law. And I was in the yard because I had this idea that, you know, maybe I could, you know, write something. And the only reason I started to think I could write a book is I ran out of books to read one night, and my husband was just like, stop complaining, and why don't you write your own? And I was like, well, maybe I will. And so I did. I sat down, and we had a family computer at the time. It was the Tandy, and it had that little hourglass that went back and forth really slowly. But it was a dial-up connection. I know this is hard to believe, but there was no internet here in 1994. So I was in the front yard, and I had my medieval research books on my lap, and I was writing a time travel. That was so much fun. It's still under the bed. I never had any success selling that. And I've tried to rewrite it, parts of it, like 3 times. And each time I'd be like, oh my God, there's too much work because there's too many words. And so it kind of got shoved off to the side. But then in 1995, a year later, I joined New Jersey Romance Writers and Romance Writers of America. And that made all the difference in the world because they taught us not only the basics of navigating the publishing industry, because it was very, very different back then. You you never realized how many editors there were that would move from house to house. And, sometimes their authors went with them, and then sometimes they didn't. And there were a couple of big houses, and I had my eye on one or two. But those didn't work out. But what did work is learning to persevere and learning never to give up. Because I had written a couple of shorter stories, novellas, before I wrote the first book that I was trying to sell, which was The Marshal's Destiny. One of the authors came in and said, my publisher, Avalon Books, is starting a new historical romance line. You want to have your books ready. You want them to be on Aaron Cartwright's desk by March 1st. I'm pretty sure it was March. For some reason, it sticks in my brain. So we were all so excited. We went back from that meeting and we're like, yes, thank you, Amanda Hart. We're going to do this. And I did. And I submitted my book. And it was my 99th rejection. I was like, it wasn't the same book 99 times. It was, different people, editors and agents, and yeah, you get the picture. But anyway, so the two Terrys had lunch with me, Terry Brisbane and Terry Castoro. They were like, so tell us what happened. What are you going to do? I'm like, oh, they rejected me. So they're like sitting across from me at lunch going, why? And I'm like, I didn't want to tell them. So finally I said, okay, well, they mentioned one thing that stuck out. They said, if you remove some of the religious references, then we'll reconsider. And I was like, okay. But for me, the problem was my heroine was from Ireland, and she came all the way across the ocean to America. And if she didn't have her faith, how in the world? I would have never gotten on the boat. But anyway, so that was her situation, and I started looking at it. I'm like, well, how many references did I really have? I counted them up, and I stopped counting at 97. So I did change that, and I thanked them, because I did realize, I was being stubborn, I did realize that if an editor or an agent writes a personal note to you on their typewritten rejection letter, then that is somebody who was interested in your work, but there was just something that they couldn't get past in order to publish you. So I was like, okay, I could do this. And then I got the call saying that this is it. Well, actually, I didn't get the call. My husband got the call because I used my initials, CH. And our daughter was inside. She answered the phone and she comes outside. She goes, Dad, the phone's for you. So he goes inside. He gives me his rake. I continue raking. And a couple minutes later, he's laughing, coming to the front door. He goes, no, really, it's for you, Colleen. And I'm like, well, who is it? He's like, some publisher or something. And I'm like, oh my God. So I got the call. And they thought I was like, I don't know, Chumley Harrison instead of Colleen Helen. I don't know. But anyway, I was so delighted to get that call. So my best advice, if you're an aspiring author, never give up, because you really never know how close you are to realizing your dream of becoming a published author. And it is a long and winding road for those of us that did it part-time because they had families and had to work. So it was like having 3 jobs. I had our kids, my family, then I had my day job as a secretary, and then I had my before work and after kids went to bed job, which was writing, which I dearly loved to do. I didn't do as much as I could have, but you know what? When you have crises and things going on in your family, you understand what that's like. And some years it seemed like, oh my Lord, it's like, oh sure, hit me again, I can take it. I asked my mom one time, how long does it take before the Lord realizes you really have hit your wall and you really can't take anymore? And she's like, trust me, that well is endless. And I'm like, thanks, Mom, I think. So anyway, getting back to the book club, I am so delighted that you guys invited me here today. Well, maybe you didn't invite me. Maybe Catherine invited me. And Elizabeth. And I'm so delighted to be here again. It hasn't been a year. I was here in July, and it's a lot cooler today. The last 2 days, oh my goodness, with the fire and everything going on, it was 90 degrees here. And I'm not ready for 90 in April. Usually, we get like 40 degrees and then maybe, some days we would get like a 70-degree day, which was really hot. But apparently, not so when your town's on fire. Well, actually, it's the woods. I think 3/4 of our town is just woods and hills and rocks and fun things like that. But anyway, I had some pretty interesting questions and conversations with you guys this week. And I kept trying to scroll through the notifications to make sure I got everybody, because in between posting things and answering questions, I was either writing Aidan Garahan's story. His book is The Duke's Defender. He's book 6. Or, like, biting my nails, waiting for the edits for The Duke's Hammer, James Garahan's story, which I got 2 days ago. So I was doing those edits, and then I was trying to keep up with comments, and then I was going to pick up our grandsons, and then you just get a little crazy, and then, because I'm trying not to think, the town's on fire, but it's okay, because it's a mile away, you're fine, and then our youngest son would call me, and he's like, Mom, do you want the update on the fire? I'm like, sure, and then he'd tell me, and he goes, you're not that far away. I'm like, I know, but, I just can't thank the people who took care of us and saved us from the fire enough. We had so many agencies from the state, the Forest Service, and it's getting really cloudy again right now, and I'm thinking maybe it's a little smoky, so, there's going to be hot spots, which they explained, even though it was 100% contained this morning, all it takes is a breeze and some person who flicks a cigarette butt out, which is, they think, how it might have started. I don't know. I'm not an expert. I don't know. I only remember what Smokey the Bear taught us when I was a kid. Only you can prevent forest fires. So, anyway, back to interesting things that I heard this week. A lot of people are invested in Bridgerton. Some of you have seen Miss Scarlet and the Duke. Stuart Martin. Oh my goodness. I love that grumpy Scotsman working on Bow Street. Oh my God, well, actually, it wasn't the Bow Street Runners. He's one of, the other one. What it became. Oh my God, see, I'm still in 1815 and I can't remember. Scotland Yard. An inspector for Scotland Yard. Anyway, it's set in the Victorian times. I love that show. But I don't have a whole lot of time to watch TV in between my deadlines. I showed you my whiteboard. That's on that wall. Jack and Hank helped me put it up. It was so cool. It was like contact paper. Because I bought this really cool whiteboard and I was going to hang it on the wall and it kept falling off. I'm like, okay, so I'm not DJ who could figure out how to do these things. I'm just me. That's not my forte. But it's okay. So I saw this on Amazon. I'm like, I could do contact paper. So I got them here and I had them doing the bottom and I was hanging onto the top and we're putting it up on the wall. They're like, are we done yet? I'm like, no, we did like the whole wall. So when I showed you that picture, that's the 3 sections that are on the one wall of the books that I have scheduled to write that Catherine, God love you, Catherine Levesque. I do love you. Really love you. You saved my life. And I've told her that before. In a very, very dark time in my life, she did not give up on me. I will forever be grateful to that. Ever, forever. So when she asked me if I had anything else that I wanted to submit to them after I was almost finished with the first 4 books that I wrote for them, I said, well, yeah, I have a proposal for the Duke's Guard. She's like, send it to me. So I did. And she wrote back and she's like, this is great. I want it. But are there any more members of the Guard? I was like, well, yeah, there's 12 more. I gave you 4. And there's 16 altogether. She's like, I want them all. So when I signed that contract, I was just like, I'm gonna write 16 more books. And then she, halfway through, I guess it was last year, she said, do you have anything else? I was like, well, yeah, actually, Captain Coventry, who I love to pieces, who is my injured naval war hero, you know, with the eye patch and the sling. The Duke of Windermere's London man of affairs, who had his happily ever after in his vow to keep. God, I love that man. Anyway, he has other men that have been injured in their service to the king, and he's starting up his own group, and you will have met one or two of them very shortly. I think you've already met. Yes, you met Captain David Bayfield in his vow to keep. He is one of the men that will be working for Captain Coventry. But I don't want to say too much because I have I have 10 more books in this series I'm writing right now to write, because I'm almost finished with book 6. I can't believe that. I've never ever thought that I would be writing any series this big before. So, before I forget, I have questions from Carol Barant, I hope I'm saying your name right, Chastity Parrish, and Claire Jesting Phillips. So, question from Carol. Do you plan each step of the writing process before you start, or do you let the story take control and follow its own path? Well, I do start every book with a synopsis and a solid idea of where I'm going, where my characters are going, what they look like, because I have to have them in my head before I start to write about them. So for me, that was like, I could do that. That's easy. You know, you write it down. I know where I want them to go. I have my black moment. Then I have, you know, okay, my favorite moment is when the hero and the heroine start to fall for each other. Whether or not it's at the same time, at a different time, the falling in love part I love to write. So, but then once I start writing the book, and then the hero is leaning over my shoulder and he's looking and he goes, oh, I don't want to do that. And I'd be typing away. I'm like, you're going to do that. And I'm typing away. And then it's like he's whispering in my brain, no, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, I'm in charge. Emily E.K. Murdoch was explaining in one of the live videos we do with the Authors Unplugged that her characters listen to her. They follow her synopsis to the letter. I don't know how she gets them to do that. I guess it's part of my writing process that my characters argue with me. They haven't woken me up in the middle of the night arguing in my head in a while. I have had that happen over the years more than once, and I'll be downstairs I'll be up early and I'll be making coffee or making a pot of tea, and my husband will be like, are you okay? I'm like, oh yes, just arguing with my characters. He's like, good luck with that, and then he'd leave the room and do what he had to do or whatever to get ready for work. And I know he probably thought I was crazy, but they love me, so, you know, they used to have to put up with me. So that is usually what happens to me, Carol. I have the best intentions, the best plans, and then my characters mess it up. So Chastity was asking me, do you have your book schedule planned for 2024? What are you working on currently? Yes, I do. I have my plan on the wall, and maybe if I turn it. Can I turn my this way? You see all that on the wall? All that over there? That's my couple of sections of books. So if we go this way, I have to change glasses, because if I use my reading glasses, oh, now I can't see because these are bifocals. But 2024, oh, we're back to writing the O'Malleys in 2024. This year, we're finishing with the Garrahan brothers. There's 4 brothers. The last book is due. So I wrote the Duke's Hammer, I'm doing the edits for. The Duke's Defender, I'm writing. The Duke's Saber is next, that's Ryan Garrahan. And then the Duke's Enforcer is Darby. Those are all for this year. Plus a Lords and Ladies of St. James, which is a different thing altogether. And then there's the cookbook. The pre-order for that was supposed to go up today. I'll have to go check and see if I can find it. The Dragonblade cookbook. You'll want to get a copy of that. And then I have a Lion's Den Oh, but that's not till next year. So for 2024, I'm writing the rest of the O'Malleys. There's 4 left. There is, this is still hard to see because I think I need a new eye prescription. The Duke's Mercenary, who is Dermot O'Malley, and then there's the Duke's Rapier Thomas, the Duke's Man-at-Arms, which is Emmett, the healer. In the book I'm editing, he really kind of falls in love with the heroine too. Garahan's not having that. And then the Duke's Lance, which is Eamon's story, and then the Lion's Den. So those are 1, 2, 3. That's 5 books so far for next year. And then I have 2025, which I have the Flahertys. The Duke's Champion, which is Seamus, the Duke's Sharpshooter, Rory, the Duke's Cavalier, which is Dylan, and the Duke's Blade, which is Fenton, who is named after my uncle and my great-grandfather, and my great-great-grandfather. But they were Purcells, not Flahertys. Flahertys were on Mom's side. So, and then I have the Flahertys are 2025. Then I have Winmere's Warriors, which is 2026. A Widow Wagered, A Widow Sold, A Widow Entailed, and A Widow Imprisoned. I have to change my glasses, so you have to bear with me squinting because I can't see you. That's so much better. And these are tinted so that the screen doesn't bother me. I know, I'm so old. I have all these issues. But anyway, so yes, Chastity. You didn't really want to know all the way through 2026 or whatever. But anyway, now you know. So I'm busy, busy, busy. It keeps me out of trouble. And then I don't dwell on my husband, who I miss to pieces. So that's why Catherine saved my life. Anyway, so Carol also asked me, do I ever travel as research for a book, or how do I celebrate when I write the end? Woohoo! Sometimes I can have a tiny piece of chocolate because with my heart thing that started when my husband got sick, I was just like, I'm not supposed to have a lot of chocolate or caffeine anymore, which really stinks. Yeah, and I was actually writing The Duke's Sword when I was in the hospital with a heart thing. Yeah, that was last year. I hope to not have to do that again, knocking on wood. Anyway, I have traveled, like, as a kid. My parents used to take us to one historical place for vacation every year. Like, one year my mom was so excited, we went up to Vermont and New Hampshire, and we visited the battlefields of Lexington and Concord, Revolutionary War battlefields, and then on down through Virginia and Maryland and all along the East Coast. And then when I was a freshman in high school, we drove cross country to California, and we stopped at my 2 uncles, my dad's brothers. One was in Tennessee and one was in West Virginia. Excuse me, so we went those 2 places, and then we went straight out, like across the bottom, through Texas, and we saw the Alamo. And it blew my mind because I was expecting to see this little building. I mean, you recognize the shape and everything, but there's all these other buildings around it, and it was like, wow, those buildings were probably there when they filmed the movie The Alamo that I saw from the 50s. Yeah, but anyway, so I've been to a lot of places, and I have all this information that I've collected over the years. But for the historicals that I write, my westerns I set out in Colorado where my dad was born, and we came back through that way, so we got to see what that part of the United States was like too, and that was really fascinating. And I used that in those westerns. But as far as going over to Europe, no, I don't have a passport, and it's never been in the budget. And it's still not in the budget, and I still don't have a passport, but maybe someday. But I do have a lot of research books, which is where I get my facts from. So, but I did, for a contemporary story, I had the most fascinating research trip to the Atlantic City Air Station. I wrote a Coast Guard story for a military anthology, and that trip was fascinating. I really loved that. Um, and celebrating at the end of the book, sometimes, like I said, I go get a tiny piece of chocolate, or just go make a cup of tea, talk to the dogs, say, "Phew, I finished," and then look at the wall and say, okay, what's next? Time to get down to business. Really, that's what I do. My life. If I'm not writing, I'm going to pick up our grandsons, and if I'm not picking up our grandsons at their house or at school, then I'm going to ShopRite. I know I have a glamorous life. Oh, sometimes I'm outside scooping dog poop. 2 dogs. Yeah, my neighbor once said to me, he goes, your dogs appear to be very well fed. And I'm like, thanks, Joe. But he's right. Too many treats. So I do have another question here from Claire. What inspires you, particularly when writing? Oh, you mean what inspires me when I'm not writing, too? Lots of things inspire me. But do you mean as far as characters go, maybe? So I'll start with that. All of my characters from day one, I've always been inspired by my husband. He had, if you've ever seen The Quiet Man, there's that part where Micheline O'Flynn says he had shoulders like an ox. And yeah, my husband had really broad shoulders. Blonde hair, green eyes. Oh, they were brilliant green. But if he was, like, his emotions would change. Like, if he was going through the day and he was not having a good day, they would get, like, paler green. If he was upset and angry, watch out, they would be, like, pale yellow. And the kids would be like, Ma, Dad's eyes are yellow. I'm like, better go to your room and find a book to read or something. So we would wait till I could go in there and figure out, try to talk to him and figure out what was going on, because, wow, when his eyes changed that color, that wasn't a good thing. So anyway, a lot of my characters, it's just DJ, the characters, because of his honesty, his integrity, and his compassion for others. He was always larger than life for me. So, yeah. And, sometimes I am inspired by things that I see people do, or something that I've read in the news or watched on TV, or maybe, in a TV show or something. If I see a character doing something that I was like, wow, I really like that. But it's usually something heroic, not something, well, I guess it could have been dastardly if it's, if I have a villain that I really, really don't want to be. That I really want you to dislike him as much as I dislike him. Despicable. Isn't that what Daffy Duck used to say to Bugs Bunny all the time? You're despicable. But anyway, so Claire, that kind of stuff inspires me. My family inspires me constantly. Oh, and you've seen the pictures of Jack and Hank. Those two are just so funny. They just keep me going, those guys. I have another question here from Carol. Nope, that was Chastity's. Carol, do you read... Oh, this is a good one. And I'm not being funny, Carol. I'm not laughing you at all. Do you read all your reviews, and if so, how do you handle the negative ones? Well, I used to read all of my reviews until there was one in particular that just, I felt like I'd been gutted, actually. And then there was another one who questioned my research, which really is a little upsetting, because even though I don't write a bibliography, I have all my research books, and I do my research. There was another one who commented, and apparently this person was quite adept at using the F word, because she used it as a noun, a verb, and an adjective and an adverb in a review of one of my books. And I was crying when I called my daughter. I think this was maybe 10 years ago, maybe longer. And she's like, Ma, if they're only using that word that many times to try to get their point across, you don't have to worry about what they think. And I was like, she's probably right. So kind of let that slide. And I do enjoy seeing when readers are liking what I'm writing, because then it means that I'm reaching the people that would benefit from reading my story, like not benefit, but enjoy reading my stories. I'm not writing for the people that don't like to read my stories. I love it when a review starts out, well, I don't normally really read this kind of a book. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this review is probably not going to go well, or where I had intended it to hopefully go. But you know what? I've been cut off at the knees so many times with reviews in 28 years that you'd think I would grow a thick skin. But apparently that's not in my makeup. Because I really care what people think. And that's been my issue for a really long time, is I really care what people think. I don't like to disappoint people. I don't like to let people down. And it's not an easy world out there for people that are sensitive to others' feelings. And but you have to make your way in life, and you do the best you can. And I would like to say that I read all of them. I read the ones that start out, like I liked blah blah blah, or the character just jumped out for them, or it reminded them of someone that they love, or hope to find, kind of thing. But when they start to tell you all the things that, well, I didn't like this, and I didn't think that was realistic, and I didn't think this was a good idea, and I wish the author would have done blah, blah, blah. Those are the reviews that I'm just like, I'm not going to read any more reviews now for like 3 months, because it takes me that long to get over it. So, yeah, I have a thin skin. Always have. So I think I actually got 1, 2, the book celebrate. Yep, I answered all the questions. So I am really sorry that this can't be a live video today, because for some reason Facebook has had it in for me this week. And maybe it's all the vibes in the air from the fire. I don't know, ash settling on like the internet lines from Optimum or whatever, but I could not get the live video to work at all. And I mean, I restarted my computer. I changed my internet connection, because we have two. We have one that's like the 5 gigahertz and then one that's not. Because believe it or not, sometimes the one works and the other one doesn't. Go figure. So thank goodness we have the same password for both of those, or else I'd be stuck, because I have a password book. DJ gave it to me. He's like, you can write all your passwords down, because I used to complain I can't remember my passwords, because I used to use the one all the time, and it was like six digits, and he's like, oh. But it's the engineer thing. Engineers need to do things like that, and he would have like all these numbers and would remember them, and I'd be like, So anyway, I tried that. I restarted my computer. I switched out the camera that I have, and then I was using just the computer camera, and I messaged Elizabeth, and I'm like, Elizabeth, I don't know what to do. And she's like, well, and then she mentioned a couple of different options, and I was like, I could record a video and answer the questions and then post it and apologize, because I am so sorry, because I really did want to have this to be a live thing. And I don't know what's wrong with Facebook, but for the past yesterday, and I think it was the day before too, every time I would scroll through the notifications to make sure that I got everybody's questions or everybody's comments, and I would scroll through them, and then all of a sudden I'd get, Facebook is sorry, but we cannot complete your whatever for whatever reason. And then I'd be like, okay. So then I'd click refresh, and then I could do a couple more and answer those, and then I'd get the notice again, and I'm like, it's just one of those things. So I've recorded this for you, because I seriously love you readers to pieces. And where would I be without you? Oh, and you can see books behind me. I'm going to post the winners. I think it's 3:15. I have the winners' names, but I may change that to 3 o'clock. I have to think about that. I have to go make some tea and think about that. But anyway, you can kind of see behind me. That's Finn O'Malley behind me. Man, I can't believe how thick he was and how... I used to live with 3 very stubborn men. I can't say that too loud because my son's in the other room. Yes, my boys, like their dad, stubborn. Not me. I'm easygoing. I know. I'm stretching the truth a little bit that way. So I hope I've answered questions successfully. I hope you've had a really good week. I hope you have an even better week this week with getting everything done that you need to do, and spring is here and the flowers are blooming. The fire is out. Oh God. You know, you don't realize how worried you are till it's not hanging over your head anymore. Because my youngest son was really, my oldest son, he was like very calm, just like his dad would have been. But our youngest was like, he lives on the other side of where the fire it was, and he would constantly give me updates and say, Ma, you really have to, Mom, you really. But God love them both, and our daughter for worrying about us, and our grandsons when they were here. Oh my gosh, I felt so bad. Because Jessie and I were talking about it. I'm like, I was telling her it's 65% contained, but it's like a mile and a half to 2 miles away, and the wind's blowing that way, so we should be fine. And we're driving over, and Jack says from the back seat, he's like, so what do you do if you have to evacuate? I said, well, simple. I get you two in the car, I get Uncle Phil in the car, and the dogs, and we leave. They're like, but what about your stuff? I'm like, it's stuff. You guys cannot be replaced. So we're all getting in the car and we're out of town. And they're like, okay. And then he got really quiet. And then a couple minutes later, he said, I have to take my laptop. It's in my backpack. It's the school's laptop. I'm like, don't worry, Jack. You'll be fine. You can take that with you. He's like, okay. And as long as I told him that, he seemed like he was fine. Hank was like, can we have ice cream o'clock? Mini milkshake o'clock? So I was like, sure. And he's like, okay. So he was fine. But, I think sometimes when you're younger, things are a little easier for you. So anyway, I can't think of anything else that might be interesting that you might want to hear. I'm not sure that anything I say is interesting that anybody wants to hear, but it's really, I find it fascinating that anybody would want to know what I'm doing. I thought it was enough just to write a story and use your imagination, but I don't know. Hey, baby boomers, we think differently. That's all I'm gonna say. So anyway, thank you again. I've really loved chatting with you guys. And my next big week is gonna be September at Catherine Levesque's Historical Book Club. So that's another week to prepare for and do. So, during deadlines and edits and all that good stuff. So, I'm going to sign off and say bye, and thank you very much for listening to me. And if you turn me off after 5 seconds, that's okay with me too. I do appreciate you though. So, thanks for being loyal readers, and thank you so much for buying my books, borrowing my books, however you read them. Thank you. I love you guys.